we're just going to go ahead and get started. And as people arrive, I will admit them. So thank you so much for the decision to join this workshop that is all about activating blessings through sex magic. It is a space that has been very special to me over the last 7 to 8 years, and it's a really big honor to have your presence here today and share a topic that may feel mysterious, exciting, or maybe even edgy to some of you. I'm just curious for those who are joining live, if you want to put in the chat if you have any experience with any type of like mystical, energetic, sensory experience when you've been in the throes of intimacy, whether that's been through self pleasure or if it's been through an activation with other beings. Okay, great. Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat, so that's perfect. And just want to let you know, there is no pressure to participate in the chat or have your cameras on. If you do want to turn your cameras on, that feels really good because I can see your beautiful faces and connect with you energetically with the eyes. But if not, again, this is a safe space, and you're welcome to do what feels really lovely and wonderful for you. All right, magical. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started now. So as I said, we're beginning this beautiful workshop that is all about sex magic. So my name is Cynthia Cramblett. Some of you may know me personally or know me from social or from other platforms. So welcome, no matter how we know each other. I am a somatic sexologist, intimacy coach, energy worker, and medicine ceremonialist, who serves as what I like to think of as a loving bridge between the sacred, the sensual, the taboo, the mysterious. And it is my mission to guide others towards liberation by exploring the deeply powerful yet often taboo parts of ourselves, especially those that are erotic and, like I said, mystical. The vessel through which I share my work of self-acceptance, shame release, and expansion is through my coaching in one-on-one and workshop formats, as well as working with the sacred synthesist in ceremonial spaces and providing educational information and yeah, just sharing surrounding safe and expansive use of psychedelics. And we are working on how to integrate some topics like sex and psychedelics, which, if you stick around to the end of this workshop, I'm actually going to touch on the use of sex and psychedelics collectively and see kind of where that lands in the realm of sex magic. In my life and work, I have vowed to the divine to speak truthfully about my own experiences as a beacon for others to step further into their truth and their soul's original blueprint. And I know how scary that can be. And tonight, I'm going to be sharing stories that I've never shared publicly. I've never shared publicly about sex magic, especially in the way that I am tonight. And I'm so excited, but there's still this little feeling of like, oh my goodness, are they going to think that I'm crazy? But I'm willing to just bear it all and let things land as they may. So just let this be a disclaimer that this is going to be a workshop that I hope not only inspires and educates you, but also stretches you. As we stretch, you know, we expand, and we have to contract a little bit, and then we come back out and we get bigger through that stretching. So thanks, James. Really excited to have you here. So anyways, let's lean in, and I hope that this will be something that enriches your relationship with self, with others, and ultimately with the divine, and just moves you beyond any experience that you could ever think of in your wildest dreams. So something to note, you are your own gatekeeper, and just note that this is my personal experience and lens of sex magic. There are so many different lineages out there that I'll touch on, and just know though, you're welcome to ingest what feels good and nourishing to you. If something isn't landing, just know that that's okay. You're welcome to put that down, reject it. But I encourage you to have an open mind and a curious spirit as we move through this workshop. Curiosity is like a key part of play. And I believe that we're on this planet to have experiences. And a lot of those experiences are so much better when we're in the state of curiosity and the state of play, which I know that if you're here right now, this is something, these are tenets of your personality already. And so what we're going to talk about, what is sex magic and what is it used for, the spiritual, cultural, and energetic history, as well as the quantum approach to this methodology to bring your blessings forward. I don't know that there's anyone out there talking about the quantum relating to sex magic, so hopefully this will be kind of a groundbreaking way of connecting the two. And then I'm going to walk you through a practical step-by-step guide through self-initiation or working with others in this highly powerful space, and sharing some personal stories along the way. And like I said, if we can get to the topic of sex magic and psychedelics at the end, that's what I'm going to do. So just to ground us in this, into this space, I think it's really important for each of us to be energetically sovereign. So I'll invite you, if it feels comfortable to you, to close down your eyes. And I'm going to try to kind of land here with you. I'm really energized right now. And just start taking some rounded breaths, just like some deep inhales and exhales as they feel nourishing. And as you can, as you inhale, start to bring in awareness to the space around you, a room you're sitting in, the textures of the seat you're on, the sounds you might feel or hear in the room. And if you can, start to envision a color around your body. If you were a color in this moment, what would that color be? What would be the color that would make you feel the most joyous, sexy, enthused, calm, but filled with joyous anticipation? Just calling that color in and allowing it to pour down on top of you like a waterfall, and filling up what can be known as your auric field, which is an egg all around you. Yeah, and just allowing that beautiful color, whatever it is, to fill you. Feel that egg, and if you can, rub your hands together, starting to generate some heat. This is activating your Reiki energy, this pure, beautiful energy. And then as you remove your hands from each other after rubbing together, just start to pull them apart, closer together and pulling them apart. Yeah. And you might feel some like static or heat or almost like a stretching of the energy in between. And what I'm showing you here is just some light Reiki work of getting attuned to your own field. And knowing that this is your energetic field, you can start to scan your auric egg around you. You might feel sticky points. If you do, you can call in protection, healing, and nourishment to those spaces that just feel a little stuck. And you're also welcome to put up your own protective bubble around this egg or as far out as you want. And that's going to allow you to feel protected in your field. And this allows you to really command safety, connection in your field, and then it allows you to differentiate as you connect with other people what is their energy and what is yours. So the more that we do these energetic awareness practices, and this is just a really general one that we're doing, but the more that we do that, the more sovereign we become and the more autonomous we become, and the easier it is to make decisions from what is best for us, not from like what other people want us to do or calling us in. And I will say this, I have become aware in my own energetic state that sometimes I'll feel arousal. And I've realized over the last several years that that arousal is not mine. When I've sat with my energetic field, I'm like, oh, this is not mine. This is the energetic arousal of someone else that's projecting into me. And you can also project yours out. You have control over that projection. But if you feel that and you don't want to experience that arousal anymore, you can give it back to someone else and cutting that cord. But if you don't have awareness around your energetic body, you might just be feeling aroused and connecting with people that aren't actually the best and the highest for you in that moment for sexual, sensual, intimate exploration. All right, so let's get into it. What is sex magic? It is the intentional use of erotic or orgasmic energy to fuel a vision or a manifestation, for healing, for communion with the divine, with so many things, focusing on your health, focusing on calling in a relationship, calling in wealth. So many different ways that this powerful energy, this creative life force energy, can be used. And it really leads to expanded levels of connection, while what I believe is creating pleasure sovereignty away from the traditional narratives around sex. If you grew up in the Western world, you probably have an idea around religious narratives around sex. And a lot of them say that intimacy is just for procreation or pleasure, which I think is true. But there are other types of sexual intimacy as well, whether it's with yourself or with others. And they don't have shame wrapped around them. And sex can be used to heal you, and it can also be used for transcendent states. And I believe that we can explore all of these if we want to, even within the same container, the same experience. And where sex magic lies in this is predominantly within the transcendent space. But of course, you are going to feel pleasure. You might feel some healing from these experiences. And of course, if you want to call in the making of a child, you can elicit that as well. As I mentioned, you can do this solo, or you can do it best with partners or a partner, whatever feels best. And it has been practiced across lineages for a very long time. Sex magic is not a new topic. It has been practiced in ancient Egypt, in Taoist alchemy in China, Tantra in the East, even Gnostic Christianity. And I'll touch on some of these lineages as we move through. But I first want to share with you all some of my personal experiences, just touching on them briefly before moving into more of the historical and then the scientific approaches to what sex magic is. So I actually sort of fell into sex magic. It was a really happy accidental discovery where I was deep into meditative practices. I had first started microdosing psilocybin. I was living in Miami. This was many years ago. And I was really into my meditative state. And I've been meditating since I was 11. And this was now, I was like 27 years old. And what I was doing was just pleasuring and thinking about this one day. I was thinking about a goal that I had. And through that, it just popped into my mind. You know, sometimes you get monkey mind. This random goal that I had showed up, poof, here it is within the brain. And it happened right at the state that I was reaching climax. And I kid you not, the goal that I had very quickly came into fruition. And it was a really weird experience to have an orgasm, thinking about something outside of fantasy or just physical pleasure. So that was my happy accident. I started then playing with my eros, my sensual, sexual, creative energy, to just move that through my body. And over time, it's gone from, you know, that first experience of accident to actually calling in energy like crystalline white light to come into my body, the top of my head, and fill my entire being with this pure crystalline energy. And I have utilized sex magic to get a raise at one point that was over $30,000. I utilized it as a ritual last autumn. I actually went out and bought a cock. I was like, I want the perfect cock. I'm going to call in the perfect man. It's going to be attached to him. And I did this really powerful ritual where eventually that man arrived. And I'm happy to say that we're together now doing some really beautiful creations together. And he's moving into sex magic with me. And with the two of us together, beautiful things are occurring. I've also utilized sex magic to heal myself. And in the last year and a half, as I was in portions of celibacy, I had experiences, and this might be a little far out part for some of you, where I was in self pleasure and opening myself up to the divine and making love to divine energy. I feel a little edgy saying this, but an energetic cock entering my yoni and pleasuring me and feeling like I was making love to divine. This is not novel to me. This is actually something after having this experience and the ones that preceded it. I started researching it, reading books, and have learned that this is actually very common as we open up our energetic fields and we begin to remove the veils of illusion that are around us. And it was very powerful, very healing, and helped me come back into a state of wholeness after being deeply abused and my body picked apart by a former partner. And it was one of those aspects that really helped me feel loved and whole and nourished, even when I was in a state of celibacy from sexually connecting with other beings. And then lastly, with my partner, which I mentioned, I have had Hathor, which is the goddess of love, devotion, fertility. She's known with Egypt. She actually came in an experience when he was worshiping at my feminine altar, if you know what I mean. And he had given me this beautiful ritual beforehand and then went down to pleasure me. And in that experience, saw this beautiful being come in, these wings. And then she started talking to me and teaching me how to move my hands and how to do energy work on him to bless him and heal him. And what she said was, this is how they worshiped us, and this is how we healed them. And it was showing me what I believe were mystery school teachings from ancient times in Egypt. So that's just a little bit of my experience. I don't want to like get really in the weeds here, but I want to just show that there can be a whole range of healing, whether you're placing a yoni egg, if you're a womb holding woman, into your vagina, and doing like a rose quartz meditation and connecting to your heart, or if you're using a light wand, or if you're a man who's self-pleasuring, whether it's with a masturbator or with your own hand, you can call in these beautiful energies, and you just need to get really clear about what you want to have. But there's this whole range of sex magic that's out there. So I kind of touched on the Egyptian lineage, a little bit about Hathor. The priestesses were called Hathoric servers, and they used sexual healing and energy exchange in order to help people that came within the temples. There's still a lot that's not known about these practices, and a lot of shrouding and mystery, but they were really focused on the devotion offering to the gods and using our energy to connect and to create an erotic healing union and a pathway to the divine. The most common practice out there using sex magic that most of you probably heard of is Tantra. This is a very famous lineage focusing on the union of Shiva and Shakti, the masculine and the feminine. And they focus on breathing together, eye gazing, mantras, mudras, and worshiping of the yoni and the lingam. The yoni is the feminine genitalia, and the lingam is the masculine genitalia. The lingam being like the lightning rod of God, the God cock, and then the yoni being a portal to the divine, a portal to creation, a portal to the everything that is. And I do teach workshops on these intermittently, about how to give a magical hand job. And I will soon be launching something called the Magical PL. And yeah, just stay tuned for those. And what you want to do is activate your Kundalini. And as that energy moves up the spine, and we'll be talking about that, you have this burst of the third eye and have spiritual awakening. There's the Taoist sexual alchemy, which comes from China. One of the things that differentiates them from Tantra is they really like to encourage men to have non-ejaculatory sex to retain vital essence. This is also known as semen retention. This is something else that I teach masculine clients if they're interested in it, and it can be through self-pleasure or through partnered breathing and energetic synchronization. And they really are trying to focus on increasing longevity. Taoist Tantra is more so focused on the masculine than the feminine. It's just the way that things have evolved. They got rid of a lot of the feminine approaches, but it still can be highly powerful and lovely. I'm just going to scan through my notes here. The next lineage based is Gnostic Christianity. And I know many of us in the West grew up in the Christian faith. I love the church I grew up in. I felt God not just in church singing the hymnals, but also laying on the ground and like staring at the clouds running through the forest. And ultimately, as a teenager, I was really exploring my sexuality and felt like this deep healing and communion that I wouldn't know until much later in life that was actually sex magic, and that was a connection with the divine as well. And some of these early sects of Christianity believe that salvation was found not through denial of the body, but through the integration and transcendence of sexual union as a sacred rite. So if you want to learn more about this practice, I recommend reading this beautiful book called The Magdalene Manuscript, or you can go through and read the Nag Hammadi. There's some really beautiful teachings about the bridal chamber and the reunification of Christ consciousness and Sophia. And Sophia is what has been left out of more well-known Christian texts now. And it's just a beautiful alchemy. And all of these practices are very, 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 very similar to one another, but have some varied elements. In Africa, they have traditions that are more so about dance and cultivating sexual energy through the movement of the base, the hips. And so just touching on those, I want to just hit on those lineages and thank them, and thank the ones that are still in existence, and conclude with the fact that what I believe all of these lineages are saying to us, and the ones that I haven't touched on, is that sexual energy is not just creative energy, but it is spiritual energy. And to me, spiritual energy is creative energy, which is sexual energy, and all of that equals the divine that's in all of us. And it's our birthright, our power source, and our bridge to divinity. And I'm pretty sure most people here have had an orgasm. And I'm sure with a lot of those experiences, you have felt this like almost like a union and explosion, and an experience that you may not have experienced anywhere else in life. And for most of us, our easiest pathway to connecting with divine in the quickest way is through orgasmic pleasure. And that is why I believe so many of us have been shut down over the millennia and are sex controlled, because it's such a powerful connection. If we numb out or create shame around sex, and we pervert, like make sex and connection perverse, and we don't tell people they can connect to the divine, then that means they have to lean into other systems to find faith. And I believe we can find faith in so many different ways, but this is the easiest pathway to divinity, in my opinion. So, with all that being said, why would someone practice this beautiful, ritualistic way of generating what you desire outside of the realm of manifestation? And ultimately, it's really about, how do I want to say this? Turning back the dark forces that have manipulated us out of our birthright and out of our power source. And if we can destroy those false narratives that have come along with surgery, to numb the genitalia, the false narratives, the porn that is out there that is driving us away from true intimate connections, and shutting down our desires, if we can turn all of that off, we can actually turn back into our own divinity, our own power of creation. And that is why I'm here to tell you about this, because sex magic has changed my life. Just gonna take a little drink. So I had mentioned scientifically, we're going to talk about things before we get into the actual practice of how you can bring sex magic into your daily life, if you wish. And I really think it's fun to touch on the different aspects of the way it impacts us. So first, spiritually, is an orgasm that opens up a portal to the divine. Neurologically speaking, arousal can rewire the subconscious. An orgasm equals neuroplasticity, which equals reprogramming the subconscious. So if you pair this with clearing out the nervous system before going into a sex magic ritual, and you empty your cup, you can be filled with what you desire, and you can really start to reprogram your nervous system and your subconscious, which the two are deeply, deeply, deeply connected. Next, biochemically, when we are in the throes of passion, we are generating oxytocin, dopamine, and DMT can emerge in these highly altered states, which sexual arousal is an altered state of consciousness. And through that, we can have profound godlike experiences like that when we have the explosion of the orgasm. Then lastly, and this is the one I'm going to dive into a little bit more specifically, is the quantum approach, which means intention affects matter. So focus, emotion plus visualization plus sexual energy equals a manifestation portal. And why I think this approach is so potent is that it can mirror the two, quantum and sex magic really mirror each other very, very well. And right now we live in this day and age where people are leaning into the mystical approaches, but they also want to understand the scientific explanation, this other language that is being used to, in my opinion, say the exact same thing. So in the quantum world, it's stating that the moment you look, you collapse possibility into a tangible outcome. So that means the observer effect is basically like the moment something is observed, it collapses into a single reality. But there's an infinite amount of realities out there, or infinite possibilities, I should say. But the moment that you give something your attention, then that possibility starts to flow. And you've probably heard where the attention goes, energy flows. That's very, very important here in the quantum space. Um, so in sex magic, your intention is the observer. Your aroused, focused mind is the lens that collapses energetic potential into form. So when you orgasm, your mind enters a trance-like state where the boundaries between and the universe completely dissolve. At this peak moment, you direct your consciousness into a vision, into this thing that you've wanted to manifest, to call forward. And in the act of choosing an outcome, sends a signal through the quantum field, which activates the collapse of one possibility into the physical manifestation. So basically, orgasm is a conscious wave function collapse, if that makes sense. So consider this. The heart emits the strongest magnetic field in the entire human body. The genitals, when aroused, emit an intense electrical charge, and the brain, when climaxing, shifts into a gamma burst, and that's an ultra high frequency brainwave state associated with non-duality and visioning. So if you can get your heart, your genitalia, and your brain all the way in alignment, you're going to have the highest charge of bioelectricity available in your entire body, right? So this basically makes you like this super magnet in the quantum world. And that's why it's so important to do the practices that I'm going to teach you in a specific order, because you're going to be in so much beautiful alignment, and you're going to be generating a highly coherent electromagnetic field. And when you pair your focused attention, this field becomes a broadcast channel into the quantum field. It's basically like your antenna is like, here I go. This is what I want. This is what I'm focusing on. And the stronger and more emotionally charged the signal, the more likely it is to imprint a new reality. So basically, you're just collapsing timelines. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm really excited right now. So thank you. If any of you have followed Joe Dispenza's work, you might be hearing some very similar pieces here. He doesn't utilize sexual energy specifically. He does have you like pull up on your pelvic floor in some of his meditations to push your cerebral spinal fluid up from the base of the spine all the way up. And then he has you hold your breath in some of his meditations and hold your vision really clearly. And what that's doing, it's priming your entire channel from the base of your spine, your lowest chakra, which we'll talk about later, all the way up to the top, to your pineal gland. And the pineal gland and the hypothalamus are our visioners for outside of what the eyes see. They're the third eye. They excrete these different hormones and things, but they're really creating that. And we're going to be generating that type of flow upwards as we move our energy in our sexual magic practice. So it basically works like this. You enter a trance, which is arousal. You focus on the reality that you want to create, which is your visualization. And then you energize it with a high emotional charge, which is your orgasm. And then after you orgasm, you release and trust, so, which means you collapse and you allow the integration, which is so beautiful. So you kind of just like charge it, create it, boom, you send out like a flare up into the divine, out into the universe, the quantum field. And then you can think about, I don't know, like a flare goes up, and now I'm thinking about the Coast Guard, like the Coast Guard's coming out. This is coming from a story that I heard yesterday. So yeah, so then the Coast Guard, which are your desires, start to come towards you. They find you, right? And the more that you do these practices, the more flares are going up. So they're tracking where you're at and where you want them to come to. So it's really beautiful. So this is highly effective if you're working singularly with your own pleasure, your own energy. It's perfect. I worked with my own sensual erotic energy, my eros, for a very long time. And it's it's powerful. But if you have a partner, or if you're in a dynamic where you have multiple partners, everything's welcome. There's no shame here. You can create greater levels of entanglement within two intentional, heart aligned beings within a sexual ritual. And you'll notice I said heart aligned. I don't believe that these practices work very well if you're not in heart coherence. I did have a relationship after I discovered sex magic that I was in for quite a while, and I tried to activate and initiate sex magic, and he could feel me pulling energy in and pushing it out of my yoni into him while we were being intimate, and I would play with his chakras and do energy work on him, but I never felt anything coming back, and we could never reach this agreement of what we wanted to manifest or come through it into that ritual because we weren't in heart coherence. And that's okay. It's a learning lesson. But know that if you're working with other people, it is going to be much more potent and powerful if you're both in this alignment. And what happens is when you're working with two people, the energy fields entrain, which means they start to match rhythm and coherence. Your nervous systems will sync through breath, sound, and eye contact. That's very tantric. And your consciousness begins to entangle in a quantum concept where two systems often affect each other across time and space, which means even after the experience concludes and you've closed out the ritual, you still have this potentiality of a shared field that goes on interdimensionally, even beyond the time that you separate, which this is a point I'll just make, and it's a topic for another time. But once you go through these rituals, you may want to then, and you're, say the container of that relationship concludes, like it's done, you're no longer engaging, you can go through rituals to sever those ties and remove that quantum connection. I'm not going to get into it, but just want to put a little pin there for you all to think about for the future. So there are rituals that I will discuss as I move through the process of sex magic, but I want to touch on what some of these elements mean from a quantum perspective. The first one being the rituals that we do in sex magic. They're not for show. A lot of times, I believe people are just mimicking things that they've seen, but they don't really know the deep resonance of why certain elements are being brought in. And if you know more about these elements and you have a connection to your own intuition and your own desires, you'll start to connect what certain elements need to be brought in to be placed at your altar, whether that's like your feminine, masculine embodied altar, or like an altar that you create, or the sacred ritual space that you're generating for your sex magic, if that feels juicy and yummy for you. So what are some of these things to think about? One is candles. Candles, fire, they ground your intention, okay? Ground your intention. So it's really important many times to light a candle when you're beginning a ritual. You can put the blessings into it, your desires into the flame. You can also use flame to purge if anything's needing to come out, which we'll talk about how we can clear out the nervous system beforehand a little bit later. And then breath work, breathing, syncing your breath. It calms the mind and aligns the field, whether it's you by yourself or with another. Crystals and oils both hold frequency. So you can be using a body oil in your practice. If you're doing like a beautiful like oil massage, having crystals. For many of us, we are familiar with the different eggs that we can place within our yoni. They also make these wands of different crystals. Knowing what those crystals represent and what their energetic frequency is. I tend to work with rose quartz more than anything else. My heart is my superpower, and the rose quartz is very connected to that. But there's obsidian, there's jade, there's so many different beautiful elements out there. You can bring in sound, mantra, tonation, growling, roaring, like primal sounds, so many different things, which stabilize the vibration of the space. And then movement and penetration anchor energy into the body. So when your inner world is really coherent, the quantum field mirrors you with clarity and speed. And then lastly, kind of the missing link that I think some people just they miss, even in non-sex magic connections that are intimate, we forget about integrating, about yeah, just coming back into integration and care afterwards, and like really just sitting in the frequency, the energy that you just generated, right? So it's really important to allow an integration period to happen so that there can be a magnetic seal to your intention. So that could look like grounding, just like resting in the bed, journaling, being outside, and just basking in the buzzing of the frequency, not jumping up immediately, going off to shower, running to a meeting, whatever it might be, just giving a little bit of extra nourishing time to just like be in that reverence of what you just experienced. And then, of course, sending a blessing of trust and receptivity to the divine. So, not overanalyzing what happened, nor reversing the charge of 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 what occurred by overthinking, because you want to just put your blessing out there, send out that flare, and then just trust that that blessing is going to come into your space. So, yes, you can practice with a solo, with the beloved, beloveds, or as I mentioned, with spirit guides or archetypal energies, which I kind of touched on before. We're not going to get into the other energies in this workshop, but I just want to touch on something that might be arising in you. Like, is this harmful? And in my personal belief, um, we all have been given the same tools. Some of us have different desires that we want to manifest, and some of them are less savory than others. And this is why it's really important that we get to know people that we might be going into ritual with and set the intentions with integrity and clarity. And if something feels like a no, if you're working with someone else, then don't bypass. Some people do use this is magical work, but we're also television is magical work. You may not know that, but music is magical work. So no matter what you're ingesting, whether it is TV, music, food, or someone else's sexual energy, that is all can be black magic or white magic, pure crystalline. So I encourage you to know that if your heart is set in the right way, you are giving the North Star prayer when you're setting your intentions and creating a field of protection, like I kind of showed you in the beginning. You're not going to have negative experiences. It's just not going to happen. And have that firm belief that you are divinely protected, and you're offering up your manifestation not just to your own self and it's serving you, but that North Star prayer of, I offer this up for my own desires. I desire this to occur, and may it be for the best and the highest for humanity or all the cosmos, or whatever you want to send that out to, because we want to be sending out prayers of love and devotion and connection, and not just desires. So this is what I want, which I'm not saying desires are wrong. This is what this whole workshop is about. It's about bringing you into your desires, but also remembering that our desires are in service to our best and our highest. And if we're desiring the most wonderful, magical, beautiful things that are going to help us feel loved, enlightened, and serving into our soul's highest blueprint, there can be no wrong, right? And offering that up to the divine is just a beautiful way of being in a state of gratitude, which, as many of us know, being in a state of gratitude brings many blessings to us as well. So pair gratitude and devotion with sex magic, creative energy, boom, beautiful. I'm take another drink. And then, my friends, we are going to get into how to practice sex magic. And I'm keeping an eye on the time. I know there's so much information to cover here, and I can literally talk about this for hours. So bear with me. Mm, thank you. So, step number one is the set in the space. So, set and setting. You're going to want to really set up your space with intention. The place that you want to be practiced in, if it's your bedroom, if it's a beautiful place outdoors, wherever it might be, recognizing that you want to be in a space where there's no distractions, there's no thing that is going to be turning your attention away or giving you bad energy. Think feng shui. You want to feng shui the space so everything feels like alive and beautiful. Really turn the space into a temple, a place of devotion, of worship, of expansion, whatever that means for you. If you're in your bedroom, maybe you want to change the sheets. You might want to light different candles, or maybe you want to do what you always do and just keep your space as it is because you're super happy. But then set us a time of no less than 10 minutes, no less, because we really want to be able to build up this energy, whether it's with ourselves or with others. And I would say self practice, no less than 10 minutes. If you're working in a ritual with someone else, I would say no less than 30, just because it takes a little bit more time to self attune and then to attune to our partners until we get really well practiced in this. Number two, decide, do you want to do this partnered or solo? Solo is, to me, like pure self love and sovereignty and creating no worries about someone else. We can be totally selfish in what feels good to us and touch ourselves for our own pleasure. Whereas partnered is beautiful because you're in co-creation and amplification, and you're feeding off of each other, and it can be this really cool weaving of two people's energies and desires, textures of their skin, their smells, all of that. Number three, this one's really important. They're also important, but this one's so important. When you are wanting to call something in, it's about getting really clear with your intentions and the why is this that you desire that. And once you make, like, say, like you make like a blanket desire, like I want more money. Okay, how much more money? What amount would feel nourishing to you? What way do you want this money or this abundance to come to you, right? How would it feel to be in that type of abundance? What's it going to generate? And then as you get more specific and emotion based, you can call it in with the five senses. So, what would this experience smell like, taste like, feel like? What would I hear? How would I feel in my body? And also, a sense that most of us forget about is our brain. Our brain is actually one of our sensory organs of sorts, if you will. How are we going to be thinking, right? Not just feeling, but also thinking. How's our mind going to be, right? And then you can hold those senses as you start to build out your ritual, which is the next step. So within the ritual, you might start to intuitively choose, do you want candles? Do you want oils, the music? Do you want to dress up in archetypal role play? Do you want to play someone other than yourself? Do you want to embody a goddess or god of some sort, or some sort of like otherworldly being? You can do whatever you want. It's beautiful. By stepping into roles, many times it helps us leave our normal life behind and project us into a new timeline, because we're putting on the embodiment of what we desire to be in these rituals. And then adornments, what type of clothes might you wear, or jewelry, or fragrances, or lingerie, or no lingerie, anything, flowers in your hair, or anything like that. Creating that ritual and how you'd like the beginning of it to go. And as you've decided, this is the space that I'm going to be in, everything is designed, you can then start to move into the ritual itself. And that means attuning your energetic field. Like I said, you can do that gentle Reiki starting at the top of your head, warming up your hands, starting at the top of your head, starting to just like gently and softly just asking divine to come in and clear your field. You can just really slow, and you'll know when to move on because the static will start to clear out from your body. If it gets really heavy, you just scrape off the energy like that. You can wipe it and just keep going down your space. Simultaneously, you can do an auric scan. That's just like kind of like this, right? You can use it with your hands. You can do it with your mind. You can ask your body, what is within me right now that needs to be cleared out so that I can be in the highest form of love and devotion and connection with myself. And this is really a beautiful part of clearing out the nervous system, so that your cup can then be poured into. Because if we're just completely overloaded and our nervous system is all haywire, it's going to be less than way harder to manifest anything, because there's no space. And we need spaciousness. We need that flowy openness for our nervous system to feel safe, to bring more in, to bring the unfamiliar in, and change our state through our bringing in the five senses and our visualizations as we move into an erotic awakened, alive in state. Other things you can do through clearing your body and the energy, the space you'll be in, is using different types of smoke, Palo Santo, sage, candles. You can take a salt bath, like an Epsom salt bath, to clear your body. Um, Place crystals around the space. And like I said, doing energy work and setting intentions that this is going to be a highly potent, powerful, beautiful experience, whatever it is that you're looking for it to be. And then coming into embodied awareness. So you've cleared out energy of your physical form and that of the space you're going to be in. So has your beloved if you are working together. And then you want to start to become aware of your physical body and your energetic body combined. So this is a beautiful practice that comes from the Taoist traditions. It's called microcosmic breath. And what you do is on your inhale, you start at the in your genitalia, and you can breathe into that space for a little bit of time. And if that feels too sticky to start there, I'll back up. You can do something called erotic embodiment breath. So with erotic embodiment breath, you first start breathing into your chest, and then you exhale. And slowly, like that starts to feel nourishing and good, and you breathe into the front of your chest, then expanding and breathing into the back of your chest. And then as that feels good and the stickiness starts to dissipate and you invite softness into the spaces that feel a little stuck, you can then move into your tummy area, your lower rib cage, and start to fill up your stomach with air, right? Inhaling that same pattern, same invitation to soften. And then when that feels good and you're breathing both big into your chest, into your belly, you then move your breath down into your pelvic bowl, into your genitalia region. And you really centralize your breath there. This is where so few of us breathe into or sense into outside of when we are aroused or moving into a state of arousal. And this will activate arousal there and bring some comfort over time. And some of you have maybe never done this type of breath before, but it's so simple. Just breathing in and out. And as that starts to feel safe and good, you can then move into the microcosmic orbit. And what that is, it's like I said, you start to focus your attention on your genitalia region. And then as you inhale, imagine the energy from your genitalia region then comes up from the back of from your up your back, past your tailbone, all the way up until it reaches the top of your head. And then on the exhale, it comes down your front body. And then you just keep doing that. And what this does is it primes your chakra system and allows all of those different parts of the body, the energetic portals that are known as your chakras, and that are in the front and the back of the body, to be completely activated and cleared. And you continue to do that breath. And that helps you feel more of what your body wishes to do, how it feels, and then you start to feel really connected. And if you're with a partner, you can now start to attune to them. And hopefully they'll be doing the same type of connection. And you'll know when you're ready to attune with each other. You can vocalize, are you ready? I feel ready. Don't be afraid to talk to each other if that's a part of your agreement. And then you can start to sit across from one another and eye gaze. If you are alone, you can have a mirror and you can eye gaze in the mirror and really start to like breathe more deeply. If you're with a partner, you can continue that microcosmic orbic breath, the inhale and the exhale cycling, where you are on their exhale, you're inhaling, and then on your exhale, they're inhaling. This is a very powerful tantric breath practice, especially as you start to move closer to each other in the eye gaze. And with eye gaze, it's better to just be looking in the left eye. The left eye is supposed to be the most potent portal into a being's soul and their multidimensional self. So rather than bouncing back and forth between the two eyes, just looking at the left eye. But do whatever feels good to you. You can start to make exhales, tonations, like and start to really feel Eros moving through your body and inviting in the five senses of the vision that you want to call in to start to come forward. And you can say it to each other like, this is what we're calling in. This is how it feels within our body of awareness. This is how it tastes and it smells and it sounds like, and my brain feels in this experience, my body feels in the experience. And then start to bring in physical touch. Whether you're with someone else or alone, you can do different types of light touch. This is like feather touch. You can do gentle grounding touch with squeezes. You can do taps on the face. moving throughout the body, just like slowly and just touching for pleasure without touching the genitalia. Like, how many parts of your body do you not touch in a sensual way? You know, like there's so many parts of us that can be aroused and enlivened and want to be like loved on that are not our genitalia. And you can bring in the oils at this time. My partner, I have this beautiful like massage candle that's really luxurious. You can find it on Amazon, and it's maybe like $25 or something. And like start to massage and have the smells come out. And then when it's time to move into more erotic touch, you can start to touch the genitalia of yourself or your beloved if that's a part of your agreement. And one practice that's really great to do, and I know we're getting a little short on time, but we're actually making great time, is you're starting to build pleasure. You can either start to go into different types of pleasure with your digits on your genitalia that of your partner's touching other parts of the body while holding that five sensory connected state in your vision. And you can be touching each other, or you can actually have this agreement where maybe one person is going to serve as what I call the altar and or the temple, right? Like my body is a temple, my partner's is a temple, and the altar for me is my yoni. The altar for him is his lingam, his cock. And if you want to be in a state of like you're devoting your body is being served as the temple and the space for holding the container and the vessel through which the manifestation will flow through, and you're going to be the one reaching orgasmic state, then your beloved would then be worshiping your temple in certain ways, and you or vice versa. Or you both can come into sacred union where through penetration, whether no matter what your gender and sexual preferences are, there are means by which penetration can happen. And through that type of penetration, you can begin to create higher levels of ecstasy. And as you're coming into this spell casting moment of climax, you both can call out the manifestation, holding that really clearly. And as the explosion happens, you're just feeling into the fullness of that desire. It's a very simple practice, but it's a very embodied practice. It's a very energetic practice. And while you're in that peak experience of the orgasm, you can even welcome in, even before it actually, but during specifically, welcome in this powerful light into your body, knowing it's of the highest and the best, claiming this is only love and light can permeate my field. This is for the best and the highest of our desires, and may this manifest out and ripple out into humanity for a better good for all of us. And allow that energy to just permeate your entire being, that of your beloved, if you're together, and just bask in that energy. Come into a state of relaxation and then integration. With that being said, there is another practice you can do that I want to touch on before we close out. And this is best for solo practice until you become more advanced in it, or you have really high levels of communication with your partner. But it is when you're in that state of arousal and physical devotion, you can start to work on the chakras. So I had mentioned the microcosmic orbit, which is really a beautiful connective breath practice and moves through the chakra band. But you can also just start at the base at your root chakra and devote a certain amount of time to being in that space and like envisioning there's colors associated with the chakras, envisioning that space being more open and blessed in the experience of what you want to manifest. And as that feels really good and open and flowing, you then move up to the next chakra within your system. And you work your way all the way up from the root to the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye. And then once you reach here, your crown chakra, and it feels really good and open for you, or if you're with a partner, with both of you, then you can call in the climax, the orgasm, and hopefully climax together. But if you don't, that's okay. In some lineages, they encourage you to climax if you're in yabyam, if you're in sexual bind with another being, that you can try, do your best to orgasm together to make it more potent. But just know you don't have to do that in order for this to work. It's just as long as you are both holding that energy. And if one wants to orgasm first and then another orgasm next, fantastic. You just hold that frequency of your vision. I'm just checking my notes here. Yeah. So then lastly, if you're doing these practices, and you're like, this is not working. Why isn't this working? I want to just hack a few things. The first might be your nervous system. Have you cleared out the gunk in your system? Is your system primed and available to be poured into, or do you have blocks? We all have blocks from time to time, no matter where we're at. That's why we need to be constant ways of decompressing our nervous system and relaxing. I've used Kundalini yoga, exercise, EMDR, brain spotting therapy. Most recently, my favorite thing is a sacrament that comes from the Sacred Synthesis, which is a 5-MeO DMT light wand. And it is a really quick way to move through really quick decompression of my nervous system and come into a more unified state and a clear state. Um, Other ways that you can work with clearing out the gunk in your system is through just being in your energy, going through a grieving process and actually setting up a ritual maybe the night before for like 10 minutes where you listen to sad songs or angry songs or whatever and purge out whatever's within you and allow full expression of your emotions to come forward. And as they're coming forward, you can ask, you know, yourself, your higher self, your wisdom, your angels, your source, your divine, what am I not seeing? What is blocking me from manifesting blank into my life? And many times your wisdom will show you in these experiences. And then that gives you opportunity to be with it and let it come through, like come out, purge out, to digest through your system. And then you can go into your sex magic practice and be totally enriched and probably have much higher levels of success because you have a cup that's more empty and you can pour into it. What else? Are you doing it enough? As we know, you can't work out once and be like, you can't run once and be in marathon or shape. So consider doing this regularly. I would say if you can do this daily, great. Who doesn't want to have wild, explosive connection and expansion in their systems daily? But if not, try to be committed to it regularly, several times a week if you can. The more that we're in this embodied sense of connection and holding the frequency of what we desire, the higher likelihood it is that it's going to manifest into our life. But also know we need to ease off the pressure of when it's going to come and lean back into that trust that divine's bringing it to you and you're sending out the flares and it's coming to you. And as I mentioned before, offering up that North Star prayer. I do believe in black magic. I do believe that when our intentions aren't aligned for the best and the highest, we don't always get the things that we desire. So I always say to divine, like, this is what I'd like, but I'm open to the best and the highest. And may I please be a vessel for love, light, joy, creativity, expression, abundance, and an example to others through this manifestation, and be that vessel. So there we go. Those are why it may not be working. If you have questions, please reach out to me through my website, cynthiacramblett.com, and we can have our own personal chat about this. And there's a little bit of time left, so I do want to touch on sex and psychedelics. I don't want to take you over time. We started a few minutes late, but I want to just touch on this just briefly. So, should you combine the two? Maybe, or maybe not. Like I said, sexual arousal is already an altered state. Using psychedelics definitely moves you into an altered state. And I believe that adding a mind expanding substance requires deep trust, communication, and presence. And you will be quantumly entangling with this person when you are engaging sexually, or if you're on your own, you're with your own energies, right? So I think it's really important if you're working with another person to really know who you're working with and have really great communication practices and things like that. If you're working with yourself, psychedelics could be really great. But I think it's really important to develop a frequency of understanding and connection with each of them individually. That being said, I think there's a lot of room for it. I do, and I am going to be doing a deep dive with this with my beloved in a few weeks on July 17th through the Sacred Synthesis. Let me see here. I can get the link for you guys. Maybe it will not work. Copy link. And so we're going to be talking about sex and psychedelics on July 17th through a conclave talk. It's free for you guys to join. We'll be doing a live stream conversation around it. I'm going to put it in the chat. And there you go. if you care to join and dive more into this topic. And I would love to know personal feedback. If you've worked with psychedelics, many people have in their relationships with their beloved. So know that it's not a crazy thing. Many people have done it. I just think that there's higher levels of us to explore in both our sex and intimacy along with psychedelics. So thank you all so much for being here. It was my highest honor to share a bit of this topic I love so much. I am going to be launching a full-blown course where we're going to go really deep into all this information, the lineages of various practices, I'm actually going to lead you through a nervous system reset practice, many meditations, defining our intentions, etc. So if you want to join that, that's going to start August 1st. I'll be sending out information. But anyways, I love you all. I think it's really cool that you came and are exploring this topic. There are so many amazing books out there that you can read too. But just know that you are your own guru. You're your own guru. So as you're exploring things, go at your own pace. Stay attuned to your own energetic body, what your true heart desires, not the expectations of others, and be in a wonderful, expansive state of love, because this can ultimately change your life. Your sexual energy is your creative life force, it is your divine life force, and it's your sacred right. And when channeled when sexual energy is channeled into a direction of like power, positivity, expansion, I don't think you can do anything but win in ways that you may never have understood. And I'm just going to scan the chat really quick. Oh, thank you guys so much. Gabrielle, I will add you to my email list if that's okay with you. I'm going to send an email after this to everybody who attended or signed up. There was like 45 people. So those who joined live, thank you for being here. Those who are catching this on the replay, so glad that you tuned in. And I look forward to connecting with you all in the future. So take care and have a wonderful night.